This material is made available to you by or on behalf of the University of Melbourne under Section 113P of the Copyright Act 1968. It may be subject to copyright. For more information, visit the University Copyright website.
Thanks for coming along, everyone. Just so that you know what the outline of what we're about to do. So I'm going to talk to you guys for the first, hopefully 15 minutes or so, just give you a rundown of some of the information you should already know if you've had a look at the handbook, but I'm going to provide some other details as well, and then we're going to introduce you to the panel. There's two that are still yet to arrive. Hopefully they arrive in time, and I'll ask them some general questions, and then we'll open the floor up to you guys, so you can ask questions either to me or the panellists. Okay, just some quick things. Why do I think you should do honours? But you're going to be hearing from the panel. This is quick because we've only got 1 hour to run through all of this, so we've been squeezed. We've lost the last hour that we originally had booked. I'd argue that an undergraduate degree is increasingly not enough. I think that's probably not too much of a controversial statement. Another reason why I think you should be doing honours is that you will find you'll be tapping into an elite network. Not only the current students that you're working with, but there's also a comprehensive alumni, certainly spread across Australia, parts of Southeast Asia, Europe and the like. You'd be surprised how many of our graduates have kind of got some great positions around the globe. So you'd be part of that network. It definitely opens up doors into the prestigious positions. So all your banks like the JP Morgans and the like, your investment banks and the like, but also lots of other types of positions which you might hear about as well today. If you're thinking about doing a PhD, well, straight from the honours program, you can go into a PhD program, and we might have a little bit of time to talk about the benefits of PhD as well later on. I would argue that in honours, you're going to learn more in that 1 year than you will in your whole undergrad degree. Again, we'll be interested to see what the panellists think about that. That's just my opinion. Definitely you will improve your coding skills. There's a lot of coding that goes into the honours program across a number of subjects. If you think you want to be in the workforce over the next 30, 40, 50 years and somehow manage to avoid computer coding, I suspect you're probably delusional, right? You need to future-proof your career. I think that's one great way of doing that. We know you'll be doing some coding in your undergrad, but your honours degree will definitely take that to a much higher level. I also think it acts as a really good signal to employers. Let's be brutally honest, everything you learn at university you won't be using in the workplace, but it does send a strong signal. And the strong signal to employers is that you got through honours, you can handle pressure and you can deliver. And a lot of the time, that ability to do that is probably as important as anything else. So, another big difference, there'll be probably some questions about, well, I'm thinking about doing masters. How does honours compare to masters? Again, you can hear some questions, put your questions at the panel as well, but the honours degree has got more of a focus on research than the master's degrees. The master's degrees are very much just coursework, and that's, in my view, very much the same kind of style as what you're used to in undergrad. If you won't have had any experience with research at this point, but what I can say is I certainly went into my honours year not knowing anything about research. I had time in industry. I did my honours just because I thought I should get more qualifications, and it was a game changer for me, big time. It opened up my mind. Research makes me feel alive, right? If you haven't given yourself that chance to be intellectually stimulated and pursue something that you're passionate about, you'll never know. Right? So if you do honours, you'll get that opportunity to see, and a lot of students do come back to me years later and say it was a game changer for them as well, and never look back. On top of that, we've also got, if you get into the honours program, we're increasingly trying to build some links with industry partners. And you'll hear from some of our panellists today, that's what their research is involved. I'll let them talk to that. So it's not just purely academic research. Increasingly, we're trying to build that kind of industry-related research, and that clearly opens up networks and pathways subsequent to your honours program. Happy to take questions about that. A few other things I just want to say. What are the benefits of research? Just in my view, there's lots of benefits. It will certainly help you improve your problem-solving skills far beyond, I think, anything that you'll do in undergrad. You get the ability to develop a deep understanding of a particular area of interest to you, and it's your area of interest. So rather than going to university and high school and having a lecturer or teacher up the front telling you what you have to know, and then you rote learning it and then spitting it back, this is the time where you get to think about, what am I actually really interested in? What do I want to know? And you get to ask the questions. You get to pursue those questions. Right? There's no other time in your degree where you're going to be able to do that. Okay? This is your chance to develop skills in something you care about, what you're passionate about. And set yourself aside or apart from everyone else out there in the labour market. Right? Critical thinking is a big part of that. The other thing I'd say you're going to have to learn to be comfortable with uncertainty. Right? I think in undergrad you get this, I think it's human nature to be honest, we all like to think the world is more certain than what it is. Right? And we like to think we've got more agency and control than what we actually have. When you go into research, you're going to realise there's a hell of a lot you don't know. You won't know the path forward. It will be uncomfortable. You'll be uncertain. And you get to the end and your supervisor will help you navigate that, but you realise there's so much more you don't know. There's so much more we don't know. Okay? So being comfortable with that uncertainty, I think, is a really important life lesson that you'll get out of it as well. We already talked about autonomy. Clearly, you'll have an essay that you're going to have to produce, which I'll speak to quickly. That will improve your writing skills, and ultimately, we'd like to think that all of this will help build your confidence. Okay, I've got to move quickly. As I said, we're kind of pushed for time. What's the eligibility? This stuff's in the handbook. You should already hopefully know this, but let's just make sure it's very clear. Investments, derivatives, plus an elective finance subject. Okay, you've got to do that. That's a finance major. But importantly, note the econometrics 2 requirement. You've got to have done that. Why is that? Well, because when you get into doing research and you're doing your honours year, number one, our subjects, we assume you already have that knowledge, and number two, you're going to need to know econometrics in order to read research papers and actually do the research that's required. Everyone pretty much in honours will be using some kind of econometric model to do some type of estimation or inference of some kind. Okay. Note as well, it's in the handbook, for those third-year elective, those 3 third-year subjects, you've got to get a grade of a H2B or better in order to be eligible for the program. Okay. In terms of the selection process, it's not really a quota. We don't have a quota. Basically, we've got an intake at the beginning of each year, and I'll talk a bit more about how competitive the entry is. I think there's some misunderstandings that are out there. People don't apply thinking they're not going to be eligible or good enough, and you'd be surprised. You're probably better than you think, and you're probably more likely to get in than you think. So I'll talk to that in a moment. Let's just get straight to it. So, okay, this is our preference. This is how it used to be a number of years ago. We actually used to say, okay, we want to look for people that have got H1s across those third-year subjects, including the elective, have done well in econometrics, and we want you to have a WAM of, 78 or above. Well, that's not that tough now, right? So this is the latest and greatest as to what the kind of requirements we're looking at. You just need to have got a H2B, an investments DS, and your third-year elective. 1, that's the first requirement. Number 2, what's the WAM that we're looking for? What do you reckon? I was 73, 74 was that WAM cut-off last year? From memory, something like that? Okay. So that's predominantly what we are looking for. Okay, so if you don't meet those requirements, then you won't get in, but that's kind of the bar that we're looking at right now. Okay. Okay, applications. It's an online process. Again, this information is available online. You will get notified mid-December, apologies. Note as well though, if you're a student that's graduating in semester 1, we're starting to make available mid-year offers. So if you graduate in June, you can apply, you can get an offer, say, July. But please note that if you get that offer in July, you won't start until the beginning of the following year. All that does is it just gives you some certainty. You might decide to go and get some work experience for 6 months or something like that in that period, and then you can start honours the following year. Okay. What's the basic structure of the program? So if you get into honours in semester 1, you'll do an advanced investments, a corporate finance, and a research methods subject. So there are 3 coursework subjects. Research methods is predominantly econometric, and then you'll have 1 elective. And so those electives sometimes move around a bit. Here's one thing that we offer that the Econ Honours don't offer. If you do Econ Honours, you can't do any of our finance subjects. But if you do finance honours, you can do some of their econ subjects. Okay? So we will let you do advanced micro and macro, for example, or econometrics 3. But that's within our program. Clearly though, in order to get into advanced micro or macro, you've got to meet the prerequisites from the econ department, right? So that'll be 3rd year micro and macro, etc. But you've got that flexibility within our program that the econ doesn't provide. Okay, then you go into semester 2, and then you've just got 2 electives. Again, you can see they kind of move around a little bit. There's a whole bunch of elective subjects that you can pick. You've got 2 of those. And then technically what you're enrolled in is your research essay, which counts as a double subject. So just recapping, you've got 4 subjects in Sem 1, 2 subjects in semester 2, and then you've also got the research essay that counts for 2 subjects. So 4 and 4. Okay. Basic structure. The days of having a 2-hour lecture and tutorials are over. Most of the honours subjects are a 3-hour class, and there's much more emphasis on research, reading academic papers, assignments, essays and the like. The kind of days of having a tutorial with short questions and answers, that we don't do that type of thing in honours. Okay. Okay. Your grade is just the average of the grades in the coursework subjects and your research essay, which is double weighted. And you can see it's awarded to students who get a grade of 65% or above. I don't think we've ever had a student that hasn't met that requirement in honours. Okay. However, I'd suggest if you get into honours, you've really got to be gunning for H1, first class, or H2A. Okay. Just want to say a few other things. Faculty is very aware that we don't have enough women coming through. So I can see there's a good percentage of women out there. You're certainly well represented in the undergrad, but for some reason you drop off when we go into honours. This year we've got 1 in 4 are females. And so we're really encouraging you to apply. We're still trying to work out exactly why you're not applying. Okay, but if you're a female and you're thinking about applying, you've got to back yourself. And so this is a plot that I just want to show you. This plot's confidence or self-esteem on the y-axis, and you probably can't read those age groups across the x-axis. This is based on a meta-analysis that was done by an academic paper. And what you can see is that women and men have the same levels of confidence up to about the age of 12. And then when you get to about your age group, 15 to 22, you can see women's confidence, this one here, takes a big dive, massive dive. Yeah, sure, men's confidence drops as well, but that gap emerges in the 20s and it persists pretty much right through your lifetime until you're in your 70s when the gap closes up, right? Now, I don't know exactly why that happens. There's probably a lot of reasons why that happens. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're a woman, you've just got to back yourself, some of our best students over the years have been, in honours, have been female. Okay, so please believe in yourself and apply. You are good enough to do honours, and we've got two of our outstanding candidates who will be speaking to you soon about that, our alumni from the past. Okay, a few more things. There's some details here. Well, that's the link there where you can apply. Make sure you get your application in by mid-November. And make sure, once you put that application in, you keep your eye on your email, because those offers will be coming through typically just before Christmas, and you'll need to accept your offer by early January. Okay. Okay, I won't need time to say that. I've got one more slide and then I'll take it over to the panel. Can you do honours part-time? No, you can't. It's a full-time offering. There's no mid-year intake. As I said, it starts in semester 1 of each year. You can't do honours on exchange. You can't study abroad. Everything was offered here exclusively. But can you do a third-year finance subject? So if you're in third year and you're thinking about going abroad, I often get emails from students saying, well, is that going to compromise my ability to get into honours? No, it won't. Okay, so let's say, for example, you go abroad and you do a derivatives type subject abroad, and that means you haven't done derivatives third year here. That's fine. As long as you do reasonably well in that derivative subject, then it's not going to impair your ability or affect your ability to get into honours. Okay. If I haven't done Econometrics 2, what can I do? You have to do it, basically. Okay, that's why we're having these sessions, making it really clear that you have to do Econometrics 2. One possibility is that if you don't have enough room in your program, there is the Community Access Program, which enables you to just enrol in a single subject, and that will appear on your transcript. And so that's one way of getting around that, if you can't fit it into your program. But we're very strict on that requirement. I got 73 in DS. Can I get into honours? In previous years, probably not. More recently, yes, you can, right? That's the H2P thing that we were just speaking about. Okay. Are scholarships available? Yes, there are. There's a lot of scholarships, and there's a link there as well. So if financial constraints are an issue for you, please check those scholarships out. And there's one final thing. There is a 2-year window that applies. So if you graduate at the end, say at the end of your third year study, and you're not really sure what you want to do, maybe you want to go and work for a little while, and you might decide at that point whether you want to come back to honours. Just be aware of this 2-year window. So you can see the cut-offs there. So if you graduate, for example, in June or December of this year, the last application date that you can apply for is for November 2027, right? So that'd enable you to start in 2028. If you wait beyond that, you've missed that 2-year window and you can't do honours. Okay? All right. So that's it for me. Probably more interestingly, you want to hear from the panel, right? So I would like to introduce, if you get the panel, who you've probably got a little bit of an idea who they are. And we've got one microphone. That's all we've got. So we're going to have to do our best. Okay. Maybe I'll just hand it through and you can all just introduce yourselves. Tell everyone a little bit about, your journey, and not too much because we've got some follow-up questions that you know about, right? So introduce yourself, where you're working. We know that Miles is a student, and then I'll kind of go from there.
Cool. Hey everyone, I'm Miles. I'm a current honours student, so it's in my second semester. I graduated my BCom last June, so I did that mid-year intake thing. I did my 3.5-year undergrad. I went travelling for 6 months, took some time off, and now I'm back. Throughout my undergrad, I did a few internships. So I interned at Macquarie, and then I interned at the Reserve Bank. And one of the reasons I'm doing honours now is because there was a scholarship available to me through the Reserve Bank, and so I'm doing some research in partnership with them, and then moving over to Sydney to work with them next year. So that's my kind of academic career.
Hi everyone, my name is Jack McCorkle and I'm a senior economist at the Department of Treasury and Finance in Victoria, so the state government, and I work in the tax policy team there. I did honours in 2021 And then after that, I moved to the Department of Treasury and Finance, and I've been there for 3.5 years now.
Hi everyone, my name is Noya. I'm currently an investment analyst in the risk monitoring and valuation team at IFM Investors. So we're essentially the asset management team in the debt investment asset class. My career journey is rather simple. I graduated from honors in late 2022, and I joined the RMV team in early 23 and have been with the team since.
Hi everyone, my name is Angela Young. So I work in Australian Super. My honours, I did it a while ago now, and it was in 2014, I believe. So it's almost like 10 years, and I've been with Australian Super ever since I graduated. So I was like an intern, I did a grad program, and like rotated across different asset classes. IFM is one of our biggest infrastructure managers. So my current role is in what we call mid-risk in the investments team. So essentially, it's infrastructure and property and private credit investments. And my role is sort of like overseeing and advise, the capital allocation decisions across various sectors among our country exposure. So yeah,
Okay.
back to you.
Do something that I didn't forewarn you about. Sorry. Could you briefly just speak to what you did in your research essay? So the students have got some idea. Can you remember, Angela? Maybe you could go last, Angela. You've still got some time to remember what you did. But these three review.
Maybe we can start from Miles.
Well, yeah, okay, go Miles. Sure. Miles, you just talk about your idea.
Yeah,
So that kind of collaboration.
Yeah, sure. So obviously I'm a current honours student. Like most of you, I did econometrics too, and I learned about vector autoregressions. So my research now is on like vector autoregressions and kind of like using a machine learning approach to kind of constrain the parameters, because when you have a lot of series in the vector autoregression, it becomes over-parameterized. So kind of shrinking those coefficients down to zero. This kind of came about because there was an interesting paper that John sent me, and the Reserve Bank were doing some research on forecasting, and they publish forecasts. And so in discussion with the Reserve Bank, I wanted to do a thesis not only that was useful for me, but actually maybe someone would read. There's a lot of time into this, and ideally it's useful. And so spoke with them, and they thought this would be a good idea. And so that's what I'm doing this year. And then at the end of the year, I'll present it to them before I work there, and it might even be useful when I start my grad program there. Yeah.
It's an unemployment rate forecast.
Yeah, forecasting unemployment.
And it's using big data, right? So how you can use a lot of data to kind of get a well-defined model that can generate forecasts. We're going to try and beat the RBA forecast. Okay?
Yeah, I also did a forecasting thesis, and John was my supervisor. So my thesis was in collaboration with the Department of Treasury and Finance, where I'm working now. And what they'd identified was that they really needed to forecast house prices in the property market, because that influences a lot of the tax revenue that the government receives because of stamp duty and land tax and that sort of thing. So we tried to apply this novel technique called the flexible Fourier form to the Australian property market to try and determine if we're able to kind of capture some property cycles in a way that traditional econometric forecasting techniques weren't really able to. And we had mixed results. Obviously, forecasting market as complex as the property market can be really challenging, especially when you're talking about 3 or 4 year forecasts. But we were able to get some pretty cool results, and some of that translated into some work that I did when I started with the department.
My thesis topic related to the impact of style performance into fund flows in Australia. So that is assessing the performance of a certain style, like small versus big or value versus growth, whether the performance of that particular style group attracts, or I guess in a negative way, impacts the fund flows into these mutual funds characterized by these styles. I remember I got mixed results, but in terms of the exact details, I'm sorry that faded out a bit in the memory.
Just big picture stuff. Do you have any recollection, Angela, of what you did?
I have to admit, I had no idea. The only thing that I knew is I did the thesis, the topic was the superannuation, sort of like analyzing like the returns, the sort of like contributions, a bit of like the government policy, etc. And that's exactly how I got into the superannuation industry, because it opened the doors for me, and it gave me the opportunity to actually talk to, the experts and like some people worked in the industry. Like one of the my career like inspirers, he was the CIO of UniSuper. So like went to like a full day like a conference and spoke to like the leadership team at UniSuper back then, and got me this idea of, hey, like I might do my honours thesis in this area. And the further I studied, the further I got like interested, and that sort of just led me into the industry, and that's the whole career. So just yeah, couldn't remember like what exactly I did.
I'm hoping what some of those examples illustrate is the diversity in terms of the type of research projects, but also I think the clear message that's come across is that it's then enabled people to position themselves to move into that relevant area. The thing that I hear a lot as well from students is that when they actually go into an interview, they get asked, so what was your research about? Right? So it's not something that's just an academic thing, right? It is very, very valued by industry and can help you open up doors, right? You're the expert now. You'll know a lot about that area that a lot of other people won't know. Okay, so the next question I had was, how did your honours year actually, relative to expectations, right? So you come in, third year, end of third year, Andrew, I know it might be a while back, so you don't have to answer this one if you don't want to, but how did the honours year compare relative to expectations? Just briefly comment.
I remembered my experience exactly, because that was really painful.
Say that.
But it's really it's rewarding. I had the expectation, but I had like a few like friends who's sort of like gone through the program, but everyone seemed so. It seems like easy for them, but back then, as someone so I came from China, so it's not something that I'm used to. Like even like reading academic papers, like I haven't done any readings in English, like any English books before, right? Like it's just something that's quite, overwhelming. But I took it as a challenge. Like I remember like I had days like before the exams, like Joachim was sitting there. He was, you taught advanced investments. Yeah, well, that was like my favorite subject. And my recollection from the subject that John had, half of the time I was daydreaming because I just I couldn't understand. So I was struggling a bit, but like the whole experience really, it's pretty outstanding, because I learned from basically just from zero, and then to getting a thesis done, and the coursework itself, it's challenging, but you learn heaps, and that's how you make yourself grow. Yeah, and I really just believe, you're just gonna accept the challenge and just, for whatever, you're dreaming about, like whatever that makes you pain, that will turn into something that's more, rewarding for yourself years down the road.
Similar to Angela, the first thought I had was it really was a lot of work. And I remember John warned us at the start of the semester already that it's going to be a busy year. but I don't think I had the wisdom to understand that it meant I would be swimming in work starting from week 1, so that's something to be aware of. Also something I realized later on was that I guess the progress, like in the year or especially during the research part, was like really far from a straight line. As in, there are times when I was like spending hours and hours, like just pondering, putting my hair out without getting any real result. And also times when I felt like things were going smoothly, but realized that there was a mistake at the start and everything has to be redone. So the achievements were made after like many back and forth and like repetitions and like redoing stuff. But in the end, I made it. So like if it happens to you, like there's no reason you can't make it. So it was tough at the time, but I guess in hindsight, it does put me in a good spot now in terms of learning how to manage stress and also be more comfortable about setbacks in general.
One thing I'll just clarify about my experience, like I definitely found honours quite challenging, but also very rewarding. But I think the difference to undergrad, where from first year to second year to third year, things get a bit harder incrementally. Honours gets harder, but in a different way. And the way it gets harder is that it's much more about your understanding and your like really true, deep understanding of the concepts, rather than just being able to like memorize or like you know, remember some key information that will get you through the exam. In honours, you can't really get away with that. You have to have a really true understanding of it. And I think the teachers in the course really make sure to emphasize that the understanding is like really important. But that also means that your learning and your level of knowledge in finance and in econometrics is like 10 times more than what you'll get in undergrad, where you're just remembering the kind of high-level details. So while I went in thinking it would be challenging, and it was quite challenging, I think the way in which it's challenging is really different, but it's much, much more rewarding than just having, you know, a fourth-year university subject that's hard for the sake of being hard instead of hard because you need to get that deep level of understanding. The other thing that really surprised me about honours, in undergrad, I didn't really make too many close friends. I would just kind of come to uni, do the lectures, do the tutorials, do the exam, pass, great, like, cool. But in honours, because it's a much smaller cohort, our cohort had about 30 students, you really get to know everyone. And because you're all in the same high pressure situation, you really make some, you know, really long-term friends that, because you share that experience together. So I think if you're like me and you don't feel like you got as much out of undergrad as you would have liked to get from uni, honours is a really great experience to kind of go through that shared journey with a bunch of close friends.
Cool. Yeah, I guess for me, like obviously it's hard. Everyone says it's hard, but it's not impossible, right? Like if you try, you can do well. But it is a big step up. For me, the biggest thing from undergrad was like, yeah, the level of friends. Like you're similar to Jack. Like, you know, in undergrad, rock up. I went to college. I had my mates. Didn't really make any uni friends. But in honours, like, you know, I have a good group of 5 mates. Went to the Clyde after every exam. You know, we go to the Clyde every Friday. Like, you know, now I actually have like uni friends, and it's really good. Like, you know, because it's so hard, you have to rely on them a bit more and, you know, study for exams together. And that's probably one of the best things. And, you know, obviously they're all switched on. So they're all going into, you know, investment banking or PE or whatever. So, you know, you have a good network, and just Bordeaux as well. Like there was a lot of people out there who have done honours or know of honours and know how hard it is. Like, for example, when I interned at Macquarie, I was in the it's called the Commodities and Global Markets team. My boss at the time, I was asking him about honours and whether I should do it, and he had done honours, I think, at Sydney, and he was saying like, yeah, you should definitely do honours. Like, you know, if someone applies to this role and has honours, I treat it like a second undergrad almost, because they learn, you know, just basically like an additional entire 3 years of undergrad learning, because it is that hard. So that was like another reason why it's kind of a no-brainer for me. The last thing I'll say is like the level of teaching is a lot better in my experience so far. Like in undergrad, you know, you have your tutors, whatever, like I didn't necessarily go to all of my tutes or lectures, but in honours, you know, you have your mates, you rock up, the teachers care about you because you're like willing to learn, and the level of teaching is a lot better, I would say. So that's another good thing.
In our defence, someone that's taught undergrad and honours, like, it is really hard if you're dealing with 1,000 students, right? Like, it's really hard to teach that type of cohort. But when you've got 30 or 40, like, you actually get to see that we're human, probably. Do you reckon, Jochen? You agree with that, right? Like, you get to see, like, and I don't know, you can disagree with me on this, but I kind of look at the honours students as like, you know, you're kind of part of the academic, like, you're one of us in some sense, right? You know, there's no longer that teacher-student divide. We're much kind of closer aligned and you get to know us better. You agree, I hope? Yeah. Yeah, it's more of an intimate type of experience. So it's a completely different experience, right? If you go and do masters, it's more of the same. You're just one of a cohort of potentially several hundred, and it's the same kind of thing, right? So if you're looking for that kind of experience, then seriously consider the honours program. Okay, so the final question, which is a very broad question, you've probably touched on a lot of it already, but if you could just speak to, you know, some of the benefits that you've got on top of what you've already said. I know Angela's done the CFA. We often get asked about CFA versus honours. If you could maybe have some reflections on that. But it's just more of an open kind of question. If you anything we haven't touched on already. So, yeah.
Like, I guess obviously we've all emphasised like the signal effect. It makes it a lot easier to get jobs, and you learn a lot more. But I'll just add, like, I have a lot of friends who work in IB, and they, you know, work 90 hours a week and never see the sun. You know, I study, I have a good life, we go to the pub, and, you know, there's no rush, right? Like, you can get those jobs next year, and it's a pretty good way if you're not quite ready to go into work, to go travelling and do some honours and do some research, and you learn a lot more than you probably would maybe as well in the first year of work. So, yeah, I'd say that as well.
Yeah, I've also got a few things to add. So one thing is kind of on the prestige of the UniMelb Finance Honours. So just within, you know, my direct team and the area that I work, we have like 3 or 4 Finance Honours graduates who are working there. And I think in general it's seen as something that puts you above people who only have an undergrad. You're definitely seen as someone who can handle challenges, who can, you know, work in a self-guided capacity a bit more. And it's something that's really great to talk about in your, like, any job interviews, because people understand that it is really challenging, and that, you know, especially doing a thesis on your own is something that most people aren't able to push themselves to do. So it is, like John said, it's like one of those signals to employers that you're a bit different from everyone else. The other thing is, I think the research element of honours is really underrated. A lot of people just think of honours as this, like, you know, it's just honours, but I think having that research element is really important, particularly because it means you get to spend half a semester basically focusing only on like a topic that you're really interested in, and a topic that maybe you want to go and work like in that field. So if there's something in particular that you're like, I want to be an expert on this, and I want to get a job that's related to this, that's a really fantastic opportunity for you to be able to, you know, do an honours thesis on it and position yourself as someone who's an expert in that particular topic that'll help you get a job in that field later on. And it's, I think, really satisfying to be able to do something at uni where you're not really told exactly what to do. You're able to determine what you do. And so that was something that was really rewarding for me. And then finally, I think, again, I just want to emphasize the experience. Like, it was a really, like, when I think back to uni, I barely remember anything from undergrad in terms of, like, you know, any assignments or friends that I've made or anything like that. But honours is, like, in my mind, like in my memory, it's bigger than the undergrad, you know, like, so it was a really good experience. And if you're looking for something like that, I'd really recommend doing honours.
While I was sitting there in the audience, so John has listed a few in the presentation. I realized if I was sitting there and listening before I did honors, I might have been skeptical. But I guess looking back, a lot of these benefits are real, and I myself has benefited greatly from all of these. This includes like the most obvious ones like coding, but also like the, I guess, deeper ones like working with uncertainty, realizing what is to be done and how to navigate your path to get there, and as well as managing stress, pressure, and I guess in general, just put yourself in a better position to work in the industry as well. And I guess in a way that is quite different from a BCom or even a master's, is that the honors study is not just about learning the core finance concepts, but it really gives you the space and guidance to dive deeper into the actual mathematical derivations and empirical works behind those theories. And it also gives you the opportunity to engage with research that is actually at the frontier of the field today. So you get to see where those old theories from like the 1960s or 70s had taken us to, and also what the big questions are in the field today. So I guess unless you go on to do a PhD or you work in a really cutting edge finance role, this kind of opportunity could be pretty rare. There was something else I wanted to mention. Anyways, I'll come back to it when it comes to my mind.
Thanks. From my experience, I think I speak to maybe like 3 aspects. So first of all, the ability that you learn from this honors degree, it will equip you with the ability to do research, right? But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing from my perspective is that you could identify a problem by yourself and you set your own timeline. And you know the hurdles and you think about ways to solve that issue, and time management and stress management, and also knowing what are the milestones. So you pretty much set those objectives on your own. And that skill is actually really, really valuable because it sets you the experience. It doesn't matter like which pathway that you take, you know, whether it be PhD or like, you know, in a corporate investment banking, institutional investors. It's the essential work skills that you take from doing the degree to your actual work experience. And it doesn't matter like if you know, like you want to start your own business as an entrepreneur. You need to have an idea. You need to tackle a real world, you know, problem. And that everything that you learn from doing the degree, it will sit within yourself, and you always like be interested in, you know, how can I solve the question? I'll tackle, you know, like I'll figure out these are the questions that are important, and I want to spend time. I want a solution. And you know to like how you structure your ways to find the solution. I think that's at the end, you know, that's what it all matters. And the second is just to echo like the social aspect. So my experience, you know, like the thesis, the honors degree, it opened the door to me. It got me the job. And I have like similar experience from some of my friends too. It is a pretty small circle. If you had no idea where you want to, you know, start your career, go onto LinkedIn, go onto your like whatever social media that you guys are using now. Search the background of like the management team, the senior leadership teams of those, you know, the companies who have done honors. Message them, email them, say, hey, you're about to go through this, you know, honors degree, and you had no idea about what you're going to be doing. Ask them for advice. Or you won't get 100% of the response. But if you do that more, and if you send out, say, like 100 emails, high chances like you'll be hearing like 50 back, and then you'll be able to schedule, you know, like coffee chats with these people. And another thing is, well, half the half of my honors cohort. I think I was in 2014. So 30% were girls and 70% were boys. And an interesting fact is we actually got 3 couples. They met in their honors year, got married happily, you know, like now they all kind of like have like 1 or 2 kids. You know, that's another aspect of that. And so speaking of like the difference, you know, like honors versus like doing CFA. I think as someone sort of like you just finishing your degree, to an employer, it's kind of like the similar effect that it allows you to open a door. It gives you the opportunities for some interviews. But as I mentioned before, the skills, the experience that an honors degree would give you, it won't be replicated from, you know, doing CFA. Because CFA, you study at your own pace. There's some like, it's just coursework. And then by the end of the day, it's exams. You just study for the exams. You know, like the experience, the connections, that actually what sets you apart from, you know, just getting another, you know, coursework done or the knowledge. Because with the AI, you know, like machine learning, you know, like they have like all the answers. Like our human brains can't beat them, right? So like what is the extra benefit from just learning that? Honors is a completely like different experience. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so now we've got 10 minutes for questions. You can direct them at me. Joachim is also involved in the honours program. Joachim, you can come if you want, up to you. The panel, any questions? Nice and loud so we can hear you. Don't be scared.
Yep. Most of the thesis topics you mentioned, like forecasting, asset market, stuff like that, is there kind of scope for more behavioural theses?
Yep. So the guys in the Brain Minds and Market Lab, I don't know if you know that team. Carsten Rowski, Mitten, and like, yeah, so there's always every year, they will normally take on about anywhere between 3 to 5 students that do more behavioural, so it's very experimental. So they set up experiments, they get students to kind of participate in the experiments, they get the results, they analyse, so there's that as well. But from my perspective, I have never said no to a topic. Like it's broad. You know, some students have done sport, right? Gambling kind of stuff, right? Yeah, sure. Got these 2 guys here because I work with both of them. So it's not just all forecasting and econometrics. There's a whole wide range of things you can do. It's really open to your imagination, right? You got anything to add, Joachim?
Yeah, that's true. It really depends on your interest. You can come up with pretty much any remotely finance-related topic you will find a supervisor. It's possible. So right now, for example, I'm supervising a student who is looking at flood insurance. That's a trouble in Australia that more and more properties simply can't get insurance. And what can we do about it? And who buys flood insurance and who doesn't, and for what reasons? So it's very broad. You will find a supervisor interested in your topic, I'm sure.
Good question. Any other questions? Yep. Look, gentleman here and then up lady up front. Yep.
So for Jack and Miles, I think your research area quite economics related. For you two, why did you decide to do the finance honours over the economics honours?
Yeah, good question.
Do you want to take mine? So just repeat. So everyone here, finance as opposed to econ.
Yeah, so given my thesis is in, you know, economics related, why did I choose finance? Good question. Something I think about sometimes. Honestly, like I chose finance because the economics honors, like I could have done my thesis in either honor program, obviously, but the economics program is very, like theoretically focused. Like there's a lot of like constrained optimization. You have to take like advanced micro and macro. And there's more of an emphasis on like policy related questions. Whereas I kind of wanted, I was still, when I came into this program, maybe considering IB or something. And so the way it worked out, I am working at the Reserve Bank, but, honors in economics, honors in finance, like in terms of the role I'm in, it's equivalent. Like people I'm working with and when I interned there, they had both. So it's not like, and also, I can take, for example, right now I'm taking a subject with economics honors people. So there's some crossover as well.
Yeah, I have a similar experience to Miles, like where I work, the finance honors and economics honors are broadly seen in the same light. I think especially because finance honors allows you to do a lot of economic subjects and you get quite a lot of economics exposures. And like my thesis, for example, was, maybe it would fit more closely, you'd probably classify it as an economics thesis more than a finance thesis. I picked finance specifically, one, because of the flexibility. I did have an interest in both finance and economics. But as John said, you can't really do much finance stuff in the economics honors. I also don't think I took the subjects to qualify for the economics honors. So that kind of pushed me towards finance too. But also I think, I wanted a bit more of that technical finance understanding, even if, it's not stuff that I really use at work now. Like a lot of my work is economics. I'm still pretty happy that I did finance honors, and it really hasn't like hindered my career prospects at all over doing economics honors.
Do you two have anything you want to add, or you're happy to say nothing? Yep. Okay. Yes. Yep. Okay.
Just to add a small point. I was also in the debate of doing economics versus finance, but I think one of the key factors for me was like, when you do econ, you have to do both micro and macro. But at the time, for some reason, I was really not enjoying macro. So that's one of the reasons I ended up choosing finance. And also I knew, even though I wasn't sure about like, in terms of academically, whether I want to do econ or finance, I do have an idea that in my career, I still want to lean towards a finance career. So it becomes more natural just to choose finance.
So there's a question up at the back. Yep, answer that, please.
I was just wondering, because the research essay is 2 subjects in semester 2, is it heavily focused in semester 2 or do we start it in semester 2?
Yeah, good question. So technically you are enrolled in the research essay in semester 2, but we actually want you starting even before the semester starts, ideally semester 1 starts. So what we're actively encouraging students to do to get in, if you get in and you start honours, you should be thinking about it in December, January, right? And ideally, like Miles was working on his thesis in December, right? As soon as he got his offer, like we were talking to the Reserve Bank and we were getting data and everything, right? So he's in a really, really good place now to do really, really well because of that. The last thing you want to do is wait till June, July, and then give yourself 3 months. Like it's just too short. Yeah.
And then so like we'll be working through like June, July.
Yeah. Like look, no one can force you to stay in Melbourne and work on your thesis. Like I can't chain you to a desk or anything like that. But we strongly advise you to keep working. Like this is the year, right, where you've got the opportunity to shine. Don't go away and over June, July. Most students will be working through that on their thesis. Yeah. Okay, we probably should be heading out, but we got another question. No more questions. Okay. Oh yeah, one more. Yeah.
How important would you say internships are for the finance honors?
I think we could probably ask, what do you guys think?
Sure. In terms of like, for success in honours or for like?
For success in honours and networking.
Right. I mean, internships is obviously important. Like, if you study finance, you have to have a look at internships. I'll speak anecdotally. Like myself and all of my honours mates have intern places. I think it's not essential. Like a lot of the stuff you learn in honours is like you probably won't use in your internships because it's just too theoretical and there's a lot of like more like technical coding stuff that you probably won't do in your job. But having said that, like the ability to like, if you've done an internship and you liked it, that might you might be able to narrow down your thesis topic. For example, a friend of mine he interned at a investment banking place, and now his thesis is on like investment banking returns and like macroeconomic stuff. So that's like his area. So maybe might be good to like if you have an internship, if you want to work in that field, you can do some research.
I'll say I didn't have an internship at all in undergrad, and that was part of the reason I wanted to do an honours, was I felt like I wasn't really that competitive in like the job market. Whether that was because of my academics, I'm not sure, but yeah, you definitely don't need one to like get in or do well in honours.
Same, I didn't do any any structured internships during my undergrad, but it turned out okay. So if you done one, that's great, but if you don't have any experience, that wouldn't hinder your ability to success in honors or in your career. But having said that, like I do see myself could have benefited strongly if I had done internships in the past. Because I think before you formally committing to a career, it's a really good opportunity through internship to test the water and see what sort of area in finance you might want your career to be in. Versus after you started a full-time job, to be realistic, there are only so many chances that make economic sense for you to make a great switch in terms of the area.